What's up, basketball fans? Welcome to the Ratch Report. It is time to talk about the NBA playoffs. We're going to be going through each matchup in both the Eastern and Western Conference, as well as talk about the two remaining matchups in the play-in tournament as well. And we're going to be going through the entire playoffs, not the first round alone. So let's not waste any time. If you want to hit the subscribe button, that'd be much appreciated. And with that being said, let's get into today's video. As you guys see there, I got the bracket lined up. Let's quickly talk about the play-in tournaments from both the Eastern and Western Conference. Obviously, in the East, you got the Atlanta Hawks versus the Miami Heat. Now, I'm going to be very straightforward. I thought Chicago would put up more of a fight versus the Heat, and I also didn't expect the Heat to perform the way they did. Now, when you look at the teams in Chicago and how they perform versus the Heat, they're actually very similar to an Atlanta Hawks team that have, good scoring guards as well. But we saw what the Miami Heat did, and I expect a similar result. Now, Atlanta Hawks are one of those funky teams. When they play a really good team, they match up to that energy and play really well. But when they play teams that aren't, top seeds in each conference, then they kind of lowered the expectations of their play as well. And I actually expect the Miami Heat to win this game fairly easily. Now, moving on to the Western Conference here between the Dallas Mavericks and the Memphis Grizzlies. I actually did get to see most of the Grizzlies game versus the Warriors. I was not impressed. I'm not going to lie. Desmond Bain absolutely carried Jaren Jackson. You can look at the box scores if you didn't watch the game and you could say, well, he did decently. And obviously, someone like Zach Edey got a lot of rebounds. I did not like Zach Edey one bit. Every single time he got a rebound, he brought it down. It was either stripped or ended up being a jump ball because opposing teams' players would always get their hands on the ball. So again, I'm a little bit disappointed in Memphis. I was expecting a little bit better, but it is what it is. I do think Dallas could surprise Memphis and win that. So I'm actually going to go with Dallas, especially with the way that they kind of went with their lineup of AD and Derek Lively. I think that's going to cause some issues, particularly for a team like the Memphis Grizzlies. Of course, you got Ja Morant, who loves to attack the basket. So I think that's going to cause some issues. And look, defense always wins. And Memphis's offense is kind of a little bit shaky. I'm not going to lie. At the moment, they're going to have to do a lot of changes, have to make a lot of changes in the offseason. So I'm actually got the Dallas Mavericks making the 8th spot. So let's quickly start with the Western Conference here. As you see there, the Thunder versus the 8th seed. I'm taking the Thunder. It doesn't matter if it's the Grizzlies. That would be obviously a more exciting matchup. Maybe Dallas gets lucky or the Grizzlies take one. Again, I'm taking Dallas. So I don't think the Dallas Mavericks are going to take even one game from the Thunder. I got the Thunder. Now, this is where it gets a little bit more exciting when you talk about some of the other matchups, in particular the Nuggets and the Clippers. Let's start with that one because obviously you got the Clippers who have been playing really well. James Harden has been amazing. And I told you guys this when I did my standings prediction before the season started. What did I see? I had to believe the Clippers as high as sixth. And a lot of people told me I was crazy because Paul George left and the Clippers weren't going to be that good. But what did I say? Kind of similar. I don't want to, steal Norman Powell's quote by addition by subtraction, right? I think that's what he said. And when you look at the Clippers, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, that's just way too many ball handlers for each individual to succeed in. And obviously, with Paul George now leaving, it kind of defines the roles a little bit better, right? James Harden, you got him kind of handling the ball and distributing the ball. Kawhi is a go-to guy who's getting you baskets. Norman Powell's been really good too, but one thing I will say with Norman Powell, his play has regressed ever since everyone has been healthy. Obviously, he's not taking as many shots, but also his role on the offensive side isn't that big either. On the Nuggets side, obviously, you got Nikola Jokic, the best player in the NBA. And how are they going to guard him? I know a lot of people have spoken about how Zubac is going to do a great job of defending Nikola Jokic, but we forget, Nikola Jokic obviously is the best player in the NBA, but even when we talk about some of the matchups in previous playoffs, we saw what he did versus the Timberwolves. That's Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns. Now, I'm not saying Karl Anthony Towns is a great defensive player, but anytime you're being guarded by 7 foot guys that are just as tall as you, just as big as you, physically wears you down. And even despite that, they still, I mean, Nikola Jokic had himself a game. Now, I think the big picture here is going to be the X factor for the Nuggets. I'm essentially going to say it's going to be Jamal Murray. I do expect him to go off. I just don't see the Clippers defense really doing a great job guarding him. James Harden isn't going to guard him that well. Norman Powell has his moments on the defensive side. He's not really known as a great defensive player, though. I will say that. And again, I know people are kind of obsessing over the fact that the Clippers have been on a hot run, which is completely fair, but some of the teams they beat up haven't been all that great either. So again, as much as my heart actually says the Clippers might take this with a healthy Kawhi Leonard, James Harden is performing well. Do keep this in mind though. James Harden has also had a lot of stinkers in the playoffs as well. I actually think the Clippers are gonna Lose. I got the Nuggets going in about 7 games. It could be six. I got the Nuggets going there again. Just I'm not gonna best bet against the best player in the league. Nikola Jokic is just going to have his way with the Clippers. I don't care what anyone says. Zubac isn't going to be great. And not to mention, if Zubac gets in foul trouble, who's the backup center? Like, they're going to essentially try and play Ben Simmons. Like, I don't know about that, guys. I have my questions about the Nuggets offense and, of course, their defense as well. Don't get me wrong. But I don't know about Clippers. The backup center position isn't all that great. And obviously, Nuggets are going to rely heavily on Jamal and Nikola Jokic as well. And obviously, you got Aaron Gordon, who's going to be guarding Kawhi Leonard most likely. But if he gets in foul trouble, then the Nuggets are in a lot of trouble as well because look, no one's stopping Kawhi. We can all be honest about this. No one's stopping Kawhi, but Aaron Gordon is a good physical body to put on him. No one's realistically stopping James Harden. You're probably going to have Russell Westbrook guard him at times. Maybe you're going to have Christian Braun probably try and guard him as well. Again, I do think the Clippers are going to put up a hell of a fight, but ultimately I got the Nuggets here in about 7 games. Now let's move on to the Lakers Timberwolves. I like this series for several reasons. One older team. Obviously, they got Luka Doncic, but Lakers have always been kind of, LeBron's team, the veteran team, and now you got the Timberwolves, an up and young coming team with Anthony Edwards. Key matchups here. I think you have to absolutely see. Everyone is talking about Julius Randle, which is fair. Everyone's talking about Anthony Edwards, which is completely fair. But no one seems to talk about this player that often gets forget about when we talk about the Timberwolves, and that is Nas Reed. So I think he's going to be the X factor for the Timberwolves here. Like when you look at the Timberwolves, they obviously have Rudy Gobert. People question Rudy Gobert all the time. I think he's changed their defense, has a great impact on it. But in terms of playoffs, we've seen what Luka did. We've seen teams do a lot of this with Rudy is pull him out to the 3-point line and then kind of have a faster guard go past him. I think the Timberwolves will have to at times use Nas Reed instead of Rudy Gobert just for a little bit more, switch and just works a little bit better, in terms of stretching the floor, of course, as well, opening up the floor a little bit more for Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards as well. In terms of the Lakers, guys, Luka, no one's guarding Luka on the Timberwolves. They have some good defensive player, no one's guarding Luka. It'll be interesting to see, though, that LeBron versus Julius Randle matchup is LeBron going to be guarding Julius Randle, right? That's the big thing because he can't do it on both ends of the floor. He's 40 years old. Julius Randle is obviously going to have a big performance for the Timberwolves. But if he has one of those, 5 for 16 performances and ends up taking like 15 plus shots and doesn't produce a lot, then the Timberwolves are in trouble. Ultimately, I do have the Lakers here in 6. It's one of those things. The Lakers are so good at taking care of some of the younger teams. We've seen them in the past with Memphis Grizzlies as well. And ultimately, this is probably the worst matchup for the Timberwolves because when you look at their whole makeup, about Anthony Edwards, you got Nickeil Alexander-Walker, they got some, guys off the bench as well. Obviously, Dante DiVincenzo, you got Nas Reed as well. But that is just not a good matchup. Like any other team, you could say the Timberwolves could probably take out, and not to mention Austin Reeves is going to be huge for the Lakers as well. So again, I just don't see how the Timberwolves get past the LA Lakers. Let's move on to the Rockets and Warriors. This is going to be a very physical matchup. And I think people are forgetting, everyone kind of is, looking at the Warriors and saying, well, they got Jimmy and Curry, which is completely fair. But when you look at the Rockets, they are a very physical team. Their whole identity as a team is to be very physical and also be a great defensive team, which they are. Now, very interesting enough because I did mention this with the Dallas Mavericks of using two bigs in a starting lineup. The Rockets have done the same. I was listening to some podcasts and other accounts as well on YouTube. Talking about how they've been using Steven Adams a lot with Alperen Şengün, and I think that's going to be very fascinating because we know Jimmy Butler likes to attack the basket. He likes to draw a lot of fouls as well, and it's going to get physical with Steven Adams. I'm not saying Steven Adams is going to block every shot, but to deal with a physical body like that's going to be interesting. Obviously, Steven Adams isn't going to go out there and be playing, 30, 35 minutes. He is going to be playing limited minutes as well, but it'll be interesting to see how some of these matchups go, with the Warriors and Rockets. Obviously, look, most people have the Warriors. I do as well, but I think we can't underestimate the Rockets. They got Dylan Brooks, who's very physical. Him and Draymond's going to be a fun matchup. I'm not saying Fred's locking up Steph Curry. No chance there. Fred's a lot older. He's a different player than he was on that championship run with the Toronto Raptors. But they got Amen Thompson. I think that's a big, big X factor for the Rockets here. How's he going to be playing on the defensive side? And most importantly, who is he going to be guarding? So it'll be interesting to see from that end. For the Warriors, this is very interesting because I actually think the X factor is going to be as strange as it may sound to a lot of people. I actually think it's going to be Draymond Green. For him, is to maintain his composure and stay in the game and not get a tech and get kicked out, right? Because if he leaves, then they're a little bit in trouble. And I actually think Draymond does a very good job of guarding some of these, I don't want to say soft centers, but some of these smaller centers. Like when you look at, guys like Domantas Sabonis, when you look at Alperen Şengün, I actually genuinely think Draymond is physical enough to stop these players in the paint as well. So I got the Warriors ultimately in six. It's going to be a fun matchup. Definitely do not sleep on the Warriors. So let's start with the Eastern Conference first round now. Again, like I said, even if Miami Heat wins, which I do expect them to win in the play-in, I don't see them winning this series at all. I'm going to take Cleveland in five. I'm being very generous just because Eric Spoelstra there. Maybe Cleveland takes it easy and maybe Miami Heat steal a game. Cleveland in five. Again, can't really talk about X factors because I just think Cleveland's going to dominate them so much. It's not really an X factor there. If Miami Heat does go off, obviously Tyler Hero is going to be key for them. But I also think it'd be very interesting. Again, similarly to what some of the other YouTubers have mentioned, it'll be very interesting to see if the Miami Heat use Davion Mitchell on, someone like Donovan Mitchell. So the Mitchell versus Mitchell matchup could be fun. Obviously, he's not going to stop him. He could definitely slow him down a bit. Maybe they put him on Darius Garland as well. So again, those kind of matchups will be fun to see if Miami do that. Pacers and Bucks. This is where it gets very exciting, guys, because we just got news from Shams Charania that Damian Lillard is back. He's going to be getting in game shape. He won't be available for game one. So he might come back from game three, most realistically, my guess is. And if I'm the Pacers, I'm stealing every single game that Damian isn't there. And they have to do their best to absolutely not lose those games because Damian's going to be big for Milwaukee. The interesting matchups there obviously is going to be, who before obviously Damian's come back is who's Tyrese going to guard, So it'll be interesting to see who he guards because teams always pick on him defensively. He's not a great defensive player. He's also really um, I don't want to say a pushover, but he's not really that strong. So if you try to post him up, you can get your way with him. Bucks role players just have to really step up while Dame is gone. Gary Trent Jr., Kyle Kuzma has to have at least one big game before Damian comes back, like a 30-point game for the Bucks to stand any chance. Pacers, they always have had the Bucks number, even with Damian Lillard there. I think that's why when a lot of people talk about why people are picking the Pacers over the Bucks, despite the fact that the best player is on Milwaukee and Giannis. It's for the one simple reason only. The Bucks aren't a great defensive team, and the Pacers are a great offensive team. That is a terrible matchup to have when you have a team that already scores, whatever, 115, 120 a night, and now you match them up against a team that doesn't play great defense. It's going to be interesting. I think the X factor for the Bucks is definitely going to be Brook Lopez. We're going to have to see how he kind of plays on the defensive side. One of the matchups with the Pacers, they have actually exposed him a lot, bring him out to the 3-point line, and then kind of just drive and kick and get open 3-point shots there as well. So it'll be interesting to see how the Bucks kind of use that. Do they sit him at times and use Bobby Portis with Giannis? We'll have to wait and see. In terms of the Pacers, I think it has to be Benedict Mathurin. Obviously Pacers have their two guys in Tyrese. They have guys in Pascal who can do it, but Benedict Mathurin, if he's coming off the bench and consistently giving you 15, 20 every single game, I think the Bucks definitely stand a chance. And most importantly, I think similar to how I talked about Kyle Kuzma, Pacers have to have Benedict at least give him one or two games where he goes off for 25, 30 points. But regardless, I do have the Pacers and I actually had them in six. I'm gonna do seven now because Damian Lillard is back. I just think that's a terrible matchup for the Bucks in general. Any other team, even versus the Knicks, it would have been a lot more favorable matchup. Now, this is one of my underrated matchups of the Eastern Conference. The Knicks and the Pistons. People are forgetting one thing when we talk about the teams like the Pistons. When there are young teams that make the playoffs and surprise everyone, similar to how the Orlando Magic did last season, those are the most dangerous teams in the playoffs. They don't have any expectations. They're already excited because they went from being the bottom of the conference last season, or in other teams' cases in the previous examples like Orlando, they were kind of 10th, 11th, 12th spot, and then you make the playoff and you make that big jump. These teams are just happy to be there. They play with no pressure. They're playing with so much energy, and it's kind of hard to game plan for them because you haven't seen a lot of their guys in the playoffs ever or for quite a long time. So the Pistons, there's a reason why Shaq said he's going to take the Pistons. And I'll give you my verdict in just one second, but those are some of the most dangerous teams. Look at the Orlando Magic last season and when they made the playoffs after several years, they pushed the Cleveland Cavaliers to 7 games. When you look at the Raptors, when they first started making the playoffs with Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, they went up against a veteran team of Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce and that veteran team of the Brooklyn Nets and pushed them to game seven. And they were a basket away from winning that game as well, had Paul Pierce not blocked it. So those kind of teams are very dangerous. They've already had a successful season. They don't play with any expectations because they're happy making the playoffs, and those kind of teams are the most dangerous. Now, in terms of New York Knicks, again, similarly, I was listening to another YouTuber. They were actually stating that no one on the Knicks was doing a very good job of guarding Cade. He just had his way with everyone from OG, McHale to even Josh Hart. So it'll be interesting for the Knicks to see. I think they'll have to certainly do a double team. And as you know, a Knicks team, you have to be okay with other players scoring besides Cade. So you have to force a double team there in terms of the X factor there for the New York Knicks. It is certainly going to have to be Karl Anthony Towns. I know this sounds really weird given that he should be their second leading scorer behind Jalen Brunson, but Karl Anthony Towns has had some stinkers, man, in the playoffs. He's had some major stinkers in the playoffs. And if he comes out the first two games and gives you, again, 7 of 21 shooting, if he comes out and gives you 12 points a game or 14 points a game on a lot of shots where he's not shooting well, Knicks are in trouble. And Pistons are certainly stealing that. But overall, in terms of X factor for the Pistons, I think it has to be Tobias Harris. Obviously, Cade is going to do his thing. Malik Beasley obviously shot the ball really well this season. We saw that, but those kind of players normally do they do shut down a little bit just because the defense gets a lot tighter during the playoffs. So I actually have the New York Knicks taking this in 7 games. So again, we'll see what happens with the Pistons. I I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if the Pistons upset the Knicks. It would be a huge upset, but I just can't. I just can't. Outside of Cade, there's a lot of questions offensively. Who's going to come and score? Again, Tobias has to really step up for the Pistons to score at least 20 a game for the Pistons to stand a chance. But just given how many weapons the Knicks have, and just given given who their head coach is and how many minutes he plays them, like 44 minutes, 45 minutes, it's essentially the Knicks starters versus the entire Pistons team. Like the bench players on the Knicks are probably going to play like 5 minutes, 6 minutes, not even. That's being generous, right? With each player. So I got the Knicks in 7. Magic Celtics. This is a fun matchup. I want to see from the Magic or Celtics point of view, who is going to be guarding Paolo Banchero. Now I know a lot of people are going to say Al Horford, and he certainly can. But the question is going to be, he's not going to guard him all the time. So are you going to put Jason Tatum on him? You definitely don't want to put him a lot either because playing that much defense is going to fatigue you. You might not have a lot left for the offensive side. In terms of the Magic, they really need to abuse that matchup. The Paolo Banchero matchup versus whoever on the Celtics is guarding him, just go at them and make them really work that matchup. And obviously, you got France there as well. So we'll see what happens with the Magic. In terms of the X factor, with the Celtics, I mean, there's no X factor. Their whole team is so stacked. If anything, I would say, just their health is my main concerns going into the playoffs. The Celtics have to be healthy, not just versus Magic, but just even moving forward. In terms of the Magic, their X factor is going to be a third scorer outside of France and Paolo. Obviously, Paolo and France are going to do their thing. Who's going to be that third player to kind of really step up and provide some quality minutes that can score for you on the offensive side? Magic have had a lot of trouble scoring on the offensive side. Good defensive team. I've got the Celtics in 5. Again, Magic are probably going to steal one game here. All right, let's go back to the Western Conference. This is a fun matchup. Lakers, Warriors, the classic LeBron versus Steph Curry, and they're both nearing the end of their career, so this will be fun. Except for you got two new faces to this rivalry. Jimmy Butler, who's had, just has constantly lost to LeBron James, and this was one of the matchups I was actually really excited about. And I mentioned that I would personally love to see this at the playoffs some point. Lakers versus Warriors. Jimmy Butler's there. Luka Doncic is there. Who on the Warriors is guarding Luka? No one. I'm going to be honest. No one's guarding Luka on the Warriors. And who is guarding Jimmy Butler? That's going to be a very interesting thing to see on the Lakers. And who's going to be guarding Steph Curry? Because Steph Curry, again, similarly, most players aren't going to shut down Steph. He may have one bad shooting night of where he's, shoots, I don't know, 7 of 23 or something. He'll still manage to hit very big 3-point shots, which hurts your team. In terms of the Lakers, the interesting aspect, are they going to play Gabe Vincent? Who are they going to play? Like, are they going to put Jarrett Vanderbilt on Jimmy Butler at times, on Steph Curry? We've seen that in the past with Jarrett being, the guy they kind of have on the defensive side glued to Steph Curry. It will be interesting to see who guards Steph, and Jimmy in particular, because Luka is not a great defensive player. Again, asking LeBron at 40 to do what he does on the offensive side, then also play defense. And mind you, he's going to be playing heavy minutes as well. It's going to be tough. With the Lakers, obviously, X factor has to be Austin Reeves. He has to absolutely go off on this, in this matchup here. He's so crucial to the Lakers' success. People don't realize that. Obviously, it does help that you have Luka and LeBron, being your main two guys that are attracting a lot of attention from defenses. But he's also a very smart player as well. In terms of the Warriors, I actually you know what? I'm going to go a little bit off the board here. I'm going to actually say the X factor has to be Jonathan Kuminga. They have to play him on LeBron James. He's a physical body, or even on Luka at times as well, because you need help defensively guarding those two players. So it'll be interesting to see those kind of matchups again. Ultimately, this is going to be a really fun series. LeBron versus Curry is always fun. Jimmy Butler has lost to LeBron so many times, and the last time these two players in particular faced off in the finals, Lakers versus the Heat, he said he's got the best of me every single time. Not anymore, but I do have the Lakers taking this in seven, just because I don't know what it is about the Lakers and LeBron in particular, guys. Especially since he's come on the Lakers, they've done a very respectable job of guarding Steph Curry. So I'm not saying Steph Curry is going to be shut down by any chance, but they do have a few games where they really make him shoot poorly and do make his job a living hell as well. So I got the Lakers actually in seven here, past the Warriors. Nuggets, Thunder. This is a tough matchup again. Two of the best players in the NBA, two top candidates in MVP, and Nikola Jokic and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander here. Look, the Thunder are probably the worst matchup for the Nuggets here. You got obviously Hartenstein he's going to do a fairly decent job of guarding Nikola Jokic. He's not shutting him down. They could put Chet on, on Nikola Jokic as well, to kind of, not to say he can guard him, but just to kind of have his quick hands and kind of just physically move around. And they're obviously going to double Nikola Jokic as well. The X factor for the Nuggets has to be Jamal Murray. There's been times where he hasn't played well against them. Look, he didn't do. Jamal absolutely struggled against Minnesota last year just because of some of the defenders they had in Nickeil Alexander-Walker. All these guys they put on Jamal, he really struggled. And Thunder have better defenders to put on Jamal than even the Timberwolves as well. So Lou Dort is going to make absolutely life a living hell for the Nuggets. It's going to be one of those cases, man, where it's like if Jamal doesn't score more than 20 points, which I actually doubt he will many games because the Thunder are that good defensively, it's going to be tough for the Nuggets, right? Where are you getting your offense from besides Nikola Jokic? So it's going to be also a fun matchup. Don't forget Russell Westbrook's in this team as well. So him facing his former team will be interesting. The Thunder here, obviously, they got Shea. He's going to do his thing. They need more offense besides Shea, though. That's the big thing for me. You know what? I want to say the Nuggets, but I won't, just because I think the Thunder have way too many defensive guys they'll throw at Jamal, and that's going to hurt the Nuggets so much in their ability to score, because Nikola is going to do his thing, but outside of Nikola, who else is going to score? That's my main concern for the Nuggets this entire playoffs, right? So I got the Thunder. I'm actually going to take them in six here. I just don't see a way where the Nuggets get past. Again, you'll have to have a Herculean effort from Nikola Jokic, no jokes. But even then, you need more help from Jamal. You need something from Michael Porter Jr. as well. And obviously, you need one of those games where Christian Brown or someone, just one of their younger guys, goes off for like 30 points. That would possibly give them a chance. But again, it's hard to bet against the Thunder just with who they have. And the Nuggets don't have anyone that can guard Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Most teams don't. Most teams aren't slowing down Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. So that'll be a fun matchup. All right, let's go to the Eastern Conference here. Going back to them here, you got the Lakers Thunders in the finals, Western Conference finals here, Eastern Conference here. Celtics and Knicks are a fun matchup. This is entirely what the Knicks built their roster on during the offseason, was to get, obviously they got OG last year, they got Mikal Bridges, and then they got a stretch big man similarly to match the Celtics and Kristaps Porzingis. Celtics are going to be fun, facing off against the Knicks, because Knicks are kind of this team that wants to be like the Celtics, but they're not even close. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, guys. I actually got the Celtics. You know what? I'm going to be very straightforward here. I wouldn't be surprised if the Celtics take this in five. I'm being generous here when I say the Celtics in six. There's no way the Knicks are going to take this serious unless major injuries happen. And the funny thing with this is going to be one of those things where I just don't see any which way the Knicks could win. Like, even if Jalen Brunson averages 30, 35, the rest of the Knicks struggle. OG Anunoby, for those that do not know, obviously I'm a Raptors fan. I watched him for many years in the playoffs. He really struggles to guard Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum as well. He's actually really good friends with Jason Tatum. But again, for whatever reason, the playoffs matchups we've had against the Celtics, regular season matchup, Jason Tatum gets his way with the OG Anunoby no matter what, which is really strange because OG is such a great defensive player. But these two players in particular, I think Jaylen Brown just has too much speed for OG to kind of keep up with. And then Jason Tatum just offensively is way too gifted. And something about it, I don't know if, he just knows OG Anunoby's weaknesses on the defensive side. He always gets the best of him. So again, it's going to be tough for the next team. It'll be interesting to see how kind of Cat performs versus the Celtics. I'm interested to see how that matchup kind of goes versus Al Horford. Or obviously, they're going to have Kristaps and Cat going at each other. That's certainly going to be a fun performance, from those two big men there as well. Let's move on to the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Pacers. Now, this was actually a really fun matchup and an underrated one because not many people talk about it. But in terms of the Pacers and the Cleveland Cavaliers, I was actually really surprised. I was keeping an eye on the box score and keeping an eye on because I really thought Pascal Siakam would struggle mightily versus the Cleveland Cavaliers, given, Evan Mobley's a great defensive player. And then you got obviously Jared Allen as well in the paint there. And I mean, keep in mind, Pascal, yes, he's hit some threes. He's unlimited 3-point attempts. So that's the thing. He's shooting great from the 3-point line, but that's not the strength of his game. So I was actually really surprised. But Pacers, they did a good job versus the Cavaliers, but in particular, Pascal Siakam got his way with them as well, which is surprising given how strong those two front court defenders are for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, the big thing for the Cleveland is going to be this entire playoffs, especially after they get past the first round, is going to be where's the offense coming from? Outside of Donovan Mitchell, I know people are going to say, well, they got a little bit more size with DeAndre Hunter. DeAndre Hunter is limited on his offense, guys. He's going to maybe give you 15 points a game. And even then, that's being really generous with him if he can do that consistently. So he definitely helps with size there. Cleveland can use him to guard, Pascal Siakam at times. They're definitely going to put Evan Mobley there as well. But I am going to go with the upset here. With the Cleveland Cavaliers, as good as they are defensively, they're going to have their trouble on the offensive side. Whereas the Pacers aren't a great defensive team. They have a few individual players like Andrew Nemhart who can do a good job of guarding players like Donovan Mitchell and even obviously Darius Garland as well. But that's going to be the big thing here. And X factors for both teams here. I'm going to go Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm going to say Darius Garland here, most importantly, because if he has stinkers again, like he did in previous, playoffs, especially that pairing of Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, I just don't think it works out. It actually similarly reminds me of, even though they're not the same type of players, but when Portland Trailblazers had CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard for these entire playoff runs, it was just absolutely ludicrous. And I actually think those two pair up worked better than Darius. Darius is a traditional point guard that needs the ball in his hands, and he's not always going to score. He's going to get you a lot of assists. But now the issue is Donovan Mitchell is a shooting guard stuck in a point guard's body who likes to score a lot. But if you're taking the ball out of Darius Garland's hand, he's not getting assists. Now you're asking him to score. It's all of a sudden a really weird thing. So in terms of the Pacers, again, I actually, you know what? I'm going to see the X factor here is going to be Miles Turner. His ability to stretch the floor, kind of pull Jared Allen out of the paint here is going to be very key for the Pacers, particularly Pascal. Tyrese is going to do his thing. I don't think on the Cleveland Cavaliers they're good enough defensively to stop him, at least not at the 1 or 2 position. Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland aren't going to do a great job of guarding him. So we'll see how that matchup goes. They might have to put Isaac Okoro at times on him. We'll have to see. But ultimately, I got the Pacers in 7. I think this is going to be a really fun series. I got them upsetting the Cleveland Cavaliers. All right, let's move on to the Thunder and Lakers. A really exciting matchup, Luka Doncic versus the OKC Thunder. Yet once again, they did a great job of guarding him last season. They did a great job, but despite that, he's still like, even if he shot 7 of 20, he ended up with 25, 30 points. He's just that good. Luka's just that good. And again, having a running mate like LeBron James is going to certainly help him as well, as who's someone who can kind of think on the same level of IQ as well. Now, from the Lakers side of things, similarly, who are they going to put on Shea Gilgeous-Alexander? Like Austin Reeves is getting cooked. Gabe Vincent, everyone is getting cooked. Like you can't even have one player you can see at the 2 or 3 position that's going to do a really good job of guarding the Thunder. This is going to be a fun series, and honestly, this is probably going to be the best matchup in all of playoffs. I think this is going to go Game 7. Now, for the Lakers to win this, again, I keep saying Austin Reeves, but this time the X factor, I'm gonna either go with Jared Vanderbilt or I'm gonna have to go with someone because someone needs to step up as the third, fourth option there. Obviously, it's Austin Reeves, but they're gonna have to find offense outside of those 3 guys in Luka, LeBron, and Austin Reeves as well. So I'm actually gonna say X factor is gonna be that fourth man that really steps up, gives them consistent offense and scores at least 15 points every game for the Lakers to stand a chance. But even then, the Lakers have so much offensive power in Luka just alone. And then you got Austin Reeves, who's probably going to give you 20 a night. You got LeBron James, who can go off at any times. But again, the Lakers have very interesting, or I should say the Thunder have very interesting defensive guys they can put on. Lou Dort, you can actually put him on LeBron James. He's not as big as LeBron, but he's so physical. You can wear him down like that. Now, obviously, Shea's going to have to go off this series and score in my opinion, 35 every game for the Thunder to stand a chance. But ultimately, I'm not saying this because it's Lakers. I'm not saying this, because I'm a Lakers fan. I actually have the Lakers in seven. There's something about the Lakers which is just so weird because the Lakers are one of those teams that take care of good young teams. And again, I know the playoffs and regular season are very different, but I wasn't surprised when the Lakers in the last week or so beat the Thunder and both teams were healthy from what I remember. So do not be surprised if the Lakers win this series. Obviously, it would be a surprise to no one if the Thunder won. Moving on, Pacers Celtics here. The Achilles of the Celtics might be injuries. The Celtics really, again, like I said, past the first round, they can still kind of get past the Knicks if Kristaps is out or if Jalen Brown is out as well. But I think the key element, the X factor for the Celtics here is gotta be health. They gotta be healthy. And I'm gonna go on a bold statement and say you're actually gonna be missing one of two guys with Kristaps or Jalen Brown, especially that deep into the playoffs. He's getting injections for his knees. That's how bad his knee is for Jalen Brown, that is. And just overall, when you see the play of Drew Holiday, it has really, really not been as good as it has been in the past. Now, for the Pacers team, again, very fun team. They obviously met with the Celtics last season in the Eastern Conference Finals as well. But I believe they didn't have Tyrese for most of that series. They might have had him for one game. I can't recall, but I'm pretty sure they did not have him for most of that series. And now they do. So that's going to be the key factor. They're obviously having Tyrese run your offense. You're going to get a high powered offense. This is going to be a fun matchup. Both teams are really high powered offensively. Celtics are obviously much better defensively. They're coached a lot better, but I'm going to go on a absolute upset here. And I'm going to see Pacers in 6 games. You could say seven. The reason I say Pacers in six, guys, I think, unfortunately, the injuries for the Celtics. I'm not saying the Pacers are better than the Celtics. I'm saying the reason that the Celtics are going to lose out is simply injury. Kristaps is probably going to be out at that time. Jalen Brown, excuse me, is going to be out because of going so deep into the playoffs and having, knee issues. It's going to be tough. Like he's probably going to miss probably 3 games in that series, and that's going to be a huge loss for the Celtics. And not to mention Drew Holiday's, uh, just he's obviously getting older. His play on the offensive side has just really taken, a hit. He's not that same player, and even defensively as well. He's no longer the player he used to be on the defensive side. So I think the Pacers will take this in 6 games, surprise everyone. The Celtics, unfortunately, they're like I said, injuries is going to be their Achilles as well. So I got the Pacers in six here. It might surprise a lot of people. Pacers versus Lakers in the finals. This may surprise a lot of people, but not to me personally. Lakers, obviously, they're going to do their thing. No one's guarding Luka, no one's guarding LeBron, and no one, well, depending, maybe Andrew Nemhard can guard someone like Austin Reeves. But in terms of the Pacers, again, similarly, who's guarding Tyrese Halliburton from the Lakers? That's going to be fun to see. He's a little bit of a taller point guard, so that also makes it interesting to see. Are they just going to throw Austin Reeves on there? Like, who are they going to put on there defensively? That'll be fun to see. In terms of the matchup, so like, who's going to guard LeBron? Pascal Siakam isn't strong enough. You definitely don't want to wear him down trying to guard LeBron the whole time. You definitely don't also want to put Miles Turner on here, just given, what, you're going to get him in foul trouble there as well. So it's going to be a really difficult matchup. It's going to be a really difficult matchup for the Pacers, and it's hard to see how the Pacers are going to win this. If they do win this, again, X factor is going to absolutely have to be Benedict Mathurin. He's going to have to go off for 30. And you know what? Even for this particular matchup here, I actually think the Pacers, if they were to face the Lakers in the finals, have to put Benedict Mathurin in the starting lineup for a little bit more offense as well, because it'll be interesting to see, and they really need that more offense. Again, not that the Lakers are a spectacular defensive team. The Lakers are a very smart team, a veteran team that's coached very well, obviously, by JJ Redick there. And the Pacers' big question is going to be who's going to be guarding Luka. Are you going to throw Andrew Nemhard there? Are you going to be throwing Aaron Neesmith? Like, are you going to be throwing Obi Toppin on LeBron James? So, I actually, you know what? I do want to say one thing about the Pacers. They are probably one of the better teams with how much depth they have. People forget that. You got Benedict Mathurin, who's going to be coming off the bench. You got TJ McConnell, who's a sneaky point guard. He's not going to give you 20 points a game, but he's the kind of point guard that can give you 15, 7 assists, and like 3 steals a game. He's that kind of sneaky point guard, just with his playmaking as well and how quick he is to attack the basket. And then don't forget, you got Obi Toppin there as well, who can give you 15, 20 a night on some nights as well. So he can be offensively, anyways, really helpful for that team. In terms of the Lakers, again, who's going to guard Pascal? That's some of these matchups are going to be really fun and how they kind of play chess here. I think these two teams in particular, very high offensive power teams, are going to be fun. But like I said, I don't think the Pacers stand a chance. I got the Lakers here winning in 6 games. I got Luka Doncic. winning the MVP here. So again, this is my final verdict, guys. I know this video might be running a little bit too long, but I'm very curious to hear what your thoughts are. A lot of people may disagree with my Pacers. I shouldn't say my Pacers. I really am rooting for Pascal Siakam. But a lot of people will be surprised to see Pacers make it even past the Cleveland Cavaliers. I really do have my concerns about the Cleveland Cavaliers on the defensive side, most importantly. So again, let me know what you agree with, what you disagree with here, and that will be it for today's video. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have yourselves a great day.